Okay, I've got 5 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. We'll call the roll.
Ansley. Here. Bowers. Caskey.
Here.
Claybo. Here. Deshay. Monroe. Silverberg. Have 5 present, 2 absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll read the emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm may sound. Everyone should exit the building by way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you have reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles. May I entertain a motion to set the agenda? All in favor? Agenda set. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Everyone should have a copy of the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes.
You have a second? Mr. Shea, second. All in favor? Say aye. Opposed? Nobody's here, so there's no input from the public. I do have a list of all the private haulers. There is one in particular that I'm interested in getting with to discuss them because they are doing recycling. They charge $5 a month. Well, I got a list from Sam. It's a pretty extensive list. I haven't had time to go through and do each individual one of them. Some of them I know, like the guy, and I live close to one of them, and they're not going to be interested in it. So some of them might be, some of them might not be.
Worth a lot, but if it's a really long list, somebody could just mail a generic letter saying, please come.
We could do that. I can call and at first and gauge interest, and then we can follow up with a letter after that.
Okay. All right. That'll work.
First item is report. I met with the mayor, talked to him about talking with Maryville. He asked that Mr. Shea get with him and they would go and talk to the city. So I don't know where that stands right now. Charlene, you may want to speak to that.
I did call the mayor's office right after you spoke with me and asked, and actually, Amy, I guess you had just met with him, and Amy wasn't aware yet, so she's going to get back with me about a date and a time for that to happen. So I'm just waiting to hear back from them. I did tell her that I really am home the next 3 weeks, so it's best if we could get it done in that time frame if they were available.
Okay. One thing I did talk to the mayor about was our idea that probably a good place to start would be by partnering with the city to reopen the center across from the hospital for county use also, and go from there. And he indicated that he would be glad to go and talk, and Mr. Shea could go with him, and they could put together some figures on what it would cost to reopen that or to allow the county to participate.
What kind of, is it just the town council that oversees that, or do they have a department that handles
Let's
it?
see where you are. There you go.
Do they have does Maryville, City of Maryville have a department of recycling and garbage collection that handles that?
Yes, they do. They have Dan Cantwell is the one who is the director and over the solid waste department and
He's like
recycling.
appointed by the city council?
He's just, I don't know if he's appointed, he's just
he's hired.
hired, yeah.
So he has some authority to make,
Well, he doesn't have the authority to make the decision. He's helped me with information, but it would be up to the city manager, to Greg McLean.
I'm just wondering who we negotiate with.
It would be Greg McLean. That's who we went and spoke with to ask if he would even be open to a partnership, because Dan says they'll do whatever they're, told to do.
Is this a delicate negotiation that needs to happen?
I think any negotiation between the county and the city is a delicate negotiation. So, but he seemed open to it if it was the right thing to do for county residents. So, there's some hope there.
Seems like it's a pretty important thing to try to come to some kind of compromise on.
We're hoping, yeah. And, and Greg McLean's a very reasonable man, and it comes to those kind of partnerships. And he used to run the landfill a long time ago as well, so he understands the necessity of the situation.
I think as long as the issues that we had last time, and when county was using, I think if those issues are addressed up front, I think that would make it much more palatable to the city. So you're, right now, the way it stands, you're waiting on callback, okay. I think that may be our best place to start, would be with that one center, to at least get that going, and if we can get some figures on that, because anything that we come up with that's going to require any funding, we'll have to go to the budget committee first, and I believe that starts, February, I believe, budget. So those are things that we need to keep in mind.
That's a staffed place now, is that correct?
The what now?
It's staffed now, isn't there a person on site at that center? So I would
Yes.
assume they would want some help paying for that staff.
Yes. It's not just the staff, but you're going to have to look at the volume also.
Right.
Because the volume is going to increase fourfold. So that's another thing that's going to have to be looked at. What is going to be the cost to handle that volume? I think that was one of the problems before.
Well, it
The
used to
volume was so
spill
much.
out all over.
Yes, yes, and that's what I was saying. The problems that was encountered before is something that probably needs to be addressed head on when the mayor and Charlene meets with Mr. McLean. And that should be something that's put out there and addressed straightforward.
Yeah, just in that subject, it seems like now that it is, because before it was not staffed, so people would come and everything was full and they just dumped their stuff there. I mean, I
Yes.
drove around with a car full of stuff for a long time. So that's a big improvement. I mean, if there's a guy saying, no, you can't dump that stuff there, that will help, but it's still, then you got people driving around and not being able to do what they hope they're going to do. So, I mean, but that does signify a big change in just the basic situation there. There is a staff person there, so hopefully we can build on that somehow.
Right, and that's what we're kind of looking at as a first step. And you get something going and then build on that and see where we can go from there.
Right. I mean, it was, just along that line too, I've been gone I missed 2 meetings. When I came back, I read one that the landfill was down by some wonderful giant amount that they were putting into the landfill that I read in the Daily Times, which seemed
Yeah.
like a real positive thing, and that if we can piggyback onto that, it can be nothing but good for the county. And then the big article about heating garbage and recycling, and they pick up my stuff, have for years in Happy Valley. And I talked to a guy this morning, he picks up on Tuesday, and I said, you know, I mean, it's just great, nice article and all. I said, but, you know, as I recall, I had read about, you know, I was talking to you about my being on this committee, and he said, oh, we pick up recycling, you know, and I went, oh, well, I want to do that. And so he brought a can out, and we started doing it, but I didn't know about it. And he said,
Right.
well, we sent out a flyer, you know, and I was thinking, well, man, there needs to be a whole higher level of public
Yeah,
information about this.
Right.
We need to create a sort of a sense of excitement about we're going to fix this, you know.
There was a really nice article, it was in Sunday's paper. Yes. About Heaton's and their recycling efforts. And I didn't know about it till Tony mentioned it, and I contacted them, and they do mine as well. And they provide a nice container, and everything's single stream, so I mean, it's great. So I think getting the word out and more people understanding that will be a benefit.
I've learned that we have a whole lot more recycling than I thought. And I'm becoming less and less wanting the government to get involved because I see the market growing now, and I think that it would be a mistake for us to just jump in and subsidize without at least giving the market some opportunity to speak. You know, especially with the fact that the budget is as huge as it's been, and the debt situation is looming. You know, fiscally, I promised not to raise taxes. I ran on that. People voted for me based on that platform, and I intend to stick by that. And I have to be consistent, and you know, this is an important issue to me. That's why I'm here. I recycle everything, or try to. But, you know, the more I look around, the more I see the private sector doing that people just aren't even aware they're doing. And I hope that the deal from Maryville comes back and is a really good, affordable thing. But if it's not, I would urge us to not rush into something like that just because it looks like that, you know, that the market is starting to do some of this stuff and is doing a lot more than I realized they were doing. You know, I certainly appreciate everybody's efforts up here. I think it's very important to all of us or we wouldn't be here. But the county's financial health right now is pretty abysmal. And, you know, I just got out of IT yesterday looking at how much money they spent to do some sort of study they didn't even tell us about, and how bad the county's IT situation is. And so I'm real hesitant to want to spend taxpayer money right now. I'll just let everybody know that up front. But I certainly, I was very much open to Maryville and still will remain open, but having seen how much the community's actually doing once I started calling around, I don't want to rush into the government doing it without having a good reason for doing it, especially now that we know that glass is not really that feasible to recycle.
Well, I appreciate what you've said. I agree to a certain extent. But I think the purpose of this committee was to see about the feasibility of recycling for the county. And it's our responsibility to address that. And I'm a taxpayer, and as well as a private citizen. And I think that it's our responsibility, if we're going to serve on this committee, if we're going to serve on the commission, sometimes to just suck it up and make some bold suggestions. So that would be, I don't want us to be afraid of looking at any possibility for us as a committee.
I believe that Maryville and Alcoa subsidizes the recycling in Maryville and Alcoa cities. I believe that the taxpayers are supporting that. So I agree. I don't want to be wasting any money at all, but this is something that the public is interested in. And I believe that was what we were charged with, to see if it's feasible. And part of that, deciding whether it's feasible or not, is can we afford it? And that's what we're trying to do, and that's why we're going to get some numbers, see what it will cost, and then go from there.
And
Any other comments?
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Well, I just wanted to say that I'm very worried about Spectra being a free resource in the future. They just pulled out of America Recycles Day for electronics for Keep Blount Beautiful on our day that they've been doing for us for I don't know how many years. So I'm very concerned about that, because I know that he's been trying to sell the business off to someone, and he's invested heavily in it. But I think that we should keep our ears open to that situation, just in case, because he has been losing money for years. And I just, you know what I'm saying? We need to kind of keep that in our back of our pockets and the back of our thoughts when we're doing certain things, just in case. Because for her to call and, I actually had to call her and ask her a question, and she had told me that today. I was just really shocked, so.
One question, Charlene, will that impact the local haulers that are recycling? Will that impact them if Spectra?
Heaton's takes theirs to him.
To Spectra?
Yes. he's
Well,
the
so
only-
that could
other than
very
Rock-
well impact
Other than
their
Rock
ability.
10, and then some paper recyclers in Knoxville, he is the only that I'm aware of in this whole general area of a small recycler that's not a corporate entity. That's not a large national corporate entity. So he does allow them to drop off things for free, and he takes things at no charges to get the goods, and he provides like a dumpster that he already has on hands, or a trailer or something. But yeah, and that worries me. And Would-Be Recycling went out of business. And I knew that they were having trouble, but my friends use them, and I was just there the other day, and they said that they just totally quit picking up in general. So let's just kind of keep those things in mind, just in case. I'm not saying Spectra's going to go under at all, or he's going to sell that, but to me, it just doesn't look. I respect Steve a lot. He did a lot for me when I was at Keep Blount Beautiful and helped me out with a lot of different things he didn't have to. But I'm just getting a not so comfortable feeling, and then if all those bins go away and all that extra service that he is doing, that will really, really, really hurt us. So, let's just try to think ahead just in case that happens, because he has been trying to talk about selling that business. And I know the guy who was doing with the glass, that Dennis, and that we're talking to, that he's not, really running that as well as he was wanted to either. So I just don't know if things are going how he wanted them to.
Yeah, when we had Rock Hill here, they said that they would pick up for a year. There was did we ever get that started? That has not.
It was only if we had a center.
You had to have a center, and we have to have it manned, because it'll happen the same thing as
So that
before,
might be able
so.
to happen down here at the Justice Center, across from the hospital?
That's what they used to do for the city. They used to do that and haul it until
'Cause there's a
they
couple.
had a certain contract.
Right. So the end of that, that end of that period is probably not moving. But
They are going to start charging the city. Like the city, like their first deal was to offer the year with their bins, and they would come pick it up. But that's not really what they do. So then their deal was, well, the city had to get their own bins and take it up there, but they're not going to charge them. But they're going to start charging them. So what I was hoping was that maybe we could work out a deal with the city to say, well, if they receive more goods, would they put off charging for a while? And try to work out something that maybe could help save the county money, and also save the city some money, and not have them charging right away, to work out another deal with Rock 10 if they increase the amount a certain amount. And I was hoping that maybe if they were interested in the separated glass, we could work that out, because he can sell that. So that's when, if we are able to go talk to Greg with the mayor, that's what I was gonna say is, well, can we work out, like I had some ideas, will this work or not? And just try to see, if that would be something to help us negotiate a little bit less, you know, and not spend so much upfront, and maybe it be something gradual and affordable. So those were my couple ideas. I don't know if that'll work, but.
Well, when I was speaking with the guy, my guy from Heaton that picks up our garbage and recycling, he said, I would say, well, that's was such a positive article, you know, and he brings one of those new trucks they've got up. I mean, they've made some investments, you know, in trucks, and I just said, I think that's great. And he said, yeah, well, you know, trouble is we've got like 20 or 25 customers after that article. That's all we've got. And he says, so many people tell me that, you know, they don't want to change who, the people that's picking up their garbage won't recycle, and they don't want to change who's picking up their garbage. And so, and I go, but it's like $8 a month more to recycle and pick it. You guys will do both for like $8 a month more. I mean, it's like nothing. And he goes, well, people are just loyal to their, I mean, he didn't know why it was, but it seems like a lot of it comes down again to the fact that there's a lot of inertia among just the citizenry. That, you know, they're either doing it the way they've done it, they haul it to the dump, or they just don't want to get mixed up in it, or whatever. And that's why we need like a sort of a campaign of like along the lines of keep Blount beautiful and keep Blount, you know, free of trash and glass, and, you know, do your part. And that would be a pretty important thing that we might be able to do fairly cheaply.
Along that line, I think that if we do partner with the city, we're going to look at the possibility of the cost are going to rise, because we just heard that Rock 10 is not, or they've got a new name now, that they're probably going to start charging. So our first year's cost might be less, and then it's going to be one of those things that's going to keep going up. One of the comments that was made to me, and this is just to share with you what was said to me. I certainly don't mean it to be derogatory or demeaning to anybody up here, but the comment was made to me that the committee was set up and there wasn't one person from the recycling industry that was on the committee. And that essentially what government is really good at doing is marching into a situation and taking it over and killing private enterprise. And the government is good at doing that. And so that was shared with me, and that we should, that our goal should be more to look to the private sector. And the more I look at the private sector, I see a couple of things. One, there's more recycling than I realized. And glass is not as feasible as I had thought it was, which was really disappointing to me. I was like, well, one thing we definitely need to do, we need to get a recycling program for glass. And the more I've studied that, the more I'm just not even sure that's environmentally friendly to haul it down to Atlanta on a pickup truck. You know, I'm just not sure that that's even an environmentally friendly thing to do. So, you know, I came to this, and I still have an open mind, and I certainly will look at whatever comes forward, because, you know, I certainly support recycling. But you know, this private enterprise man did make the point to me that we should be more sensitive to the private sector, and I think that's a point well taken. I also know that, you know, when I was out campaigning, you know, I lost track of the number of homes, but I would say it was well over 1,000 voters. And I took notes and listened to what people wanted. And in my entire district, I only had 3 people say they wanted recycling. Now, I heard a whole lot more than that tell me, don't raise my taxes. I'm tired of big government. I'm tired of the government telling me what to do. I'm tired of the government running my life. I want them to leave me alone. So I did take very seriously those 3 people, and that's one of the reasons why I'm up here. It's definitely a personal interest of mine. It only makes sense to take good care of our planet. So I just want to say that, you know, and so I'm not saying that to shoot anything down, because we don't even have the proposal before us. I just want to share those concerns with everybody. Those are concerns that I have and concerns that people in my district have had, and people in the private sector have expressed to me. The other thing that I've learned, I called one of the schools in my district, and I found out that the gates are open a lot longer than I thought they were, and that you can you don't have to just be there from 8 to 3. You've got a much longer window of time that you can recycle at the schools. Of course, that's connected to Spectra, but so I think that I actually asked the principal to, the next time they send a newsletter home, to try to promote recycling more at his school, and he said he was going to do that. So I think there are some things that we can, as a committee, do. You know, maybe we should have a recycling day and go out and talk to people and promote it, you know, that there's actually more recycling in our community than we realize. And then the other aspect is the profitability motive. You know, the free market is good at making money. If it was profitable, they'd already be doing all of this. And so I think that's something if we're going to take it over, we're going to subsidize it because it isn't profitable. And there might be a reason to. You know, the landfill is an issue. But I just think before we do subsidize, that we should probably exhaust every other option before we go that route. So thank you.
Let me say, I think most of us agree with that basics, and I haven't heard anybody trying to promote a big government program to take care of recycling. I mean, what I was saying is that here's some guys that want to recycle, and the actual people, you know, don't want to pay almost nothing in order to have that done. Now, and that's not a tax, that's a fee that these people charge for doing it. And, you know, so they're making money at it somehow. I mean, they're either making money by getting the fees because the citizens are paying them to pick it up. And I would assume that's where they're mostly making their money. But, like, you know, that's why I'm just saying, you know, it won't cost us anything or much at all if we can increase awareness about it and make people realize that this is a doable thing. I mean, that's feasibility, doability. I mean, we can do it in a way that doesn't mean the county takes over all operations of recycling.
Well, that's one of the things and that was mentioned before, that if it were profitable, you would have companies doing it. One of the things in Blount County, you have a lot of independent haulers. I don't remember the number now. It was like 20 or something. There's a lot, and they have their own little kingdom, I guess you could say, for lack of another word right now, but they have their own little area, and they operate within that area. That's not, getting it picked up, and it's probably what they're talking about. They have to do something with it, so there has to be someone on the other end that will take that, and right now, from my understanding, there's only 2 companies, Charlene, that'll do that. And if one of them goes away, then you've got only one doing it. And I don't think it's this committee's intent to get into the recycling business. I think we're just trying to make it possible to recycle, so have some kind of recycling program, and maybe starting with the city is a baby step, and then see where it goes. It may be like the city finally said this is too much, and we may get to that point after a year or two. We may get to the point so no, we just can't do it. But I don't see, again, if it was very profitable, you would have a big company doing it.
Well, and, you know, I mean, along with all this is like producing less waste. I mean, that's another whole perspective on this is obviously I said this months ago, you know, when I was a kid growing up, you know, the garbage man came once a week and he took one little bag of stuff away. Just when you go to the grocery store and you come home, the amount of refuse you have is unbelievable. So it's, you know, this is part of that whole education kind of thing. I just think that no matter what decisions we make, no matter what ends up happening, that has to be just an ongoing thing to raise awareness and make it a cool thing to do, make it so, like, I guess these small little haulers, they just want to haul trash to the dump is basically what they want to do. Is that what, to the landfill? And they know that route. If they have to drive all the way to Knoxville to Spectre or to Rocktown, it costs them more in gas and fuel and everything else.
Well, on that vein, one of the things that was suggested to me, when you go to the county dump now, there is recycling, but it's only for individuals. It's not for the haulers. And so it was suggested to me that maybe we could look at setting something up at the dump for the haulers to come to recycle. And that might be the way to go, is to allow the haulers to do what Heaton is doing and set up a facility at the dump right there, where all the haulers could come in and it would be more centrally located. And so I kind of like that idea. I don't know about what the cost would be or anything, but it's definitely, I think, an idea that's worth exploring.
Is the dump completely funded by Blount County, or are there federal funds that help pay for that?
The cities too.
The city
And you pay your
alcohol.
dumping fees.
And there's also some federal funds that probably go for it too, wouldn't you imagine?
There's federal regulations.
It
I
would
don't
be
know about
interesting,
federal
well, it'd be
funds.
interesting to see
I mean, maybe we should bring Sam and some of these private haulers in here and see if they could negotiate something. That might be the way to go.
well, and especially rather than just sitting here and letting rumors spread that we're just a bunch of inexperienced people who want to tax the citizens of Blount County more, maybe we could go about trying to establish a reputation as a group that's trying to work with the private sector to solve these problems, and that if we can find ways to facilitate even the private sector and make it easier on them, that we're open to that.
Well, when you bring in those haulers, would it be possible to bring Sam in as well from the dump and just suggest that and start that conversation? That might be the way to go. It might be that all those other people that like their current, hauler might decide to start recycling because they just don't want to switch to another hauler. That might be the way to go.
I will ask Sam to come to the next meeting. One of the things I might note too is that this committee has no authority to raise taxes. So, we cannot do that. All we could do would be, through the budget committee, is ask for funding. How that funding is where it comes from, that would be at that time. Right now, we're way ahead. We need to find out, get some figures on a piece of paper and see what it's going to cost first. The cost may come back and be totally prohibitive just from looking at it first glance. So that may settle that whole issue until the mayor and Charlene meet with Mr. McLean. We're kind of ahead of ourselves here a little bit. Anything else? The resolution to extend, I'm waiting on that to wait to see if, to see if we're going to be able to do anything. I'm hesitant to ask for an extension until we figure out what we would be extending and meeting for. I would certainly hope so. I think it was Tuesday. I think I met with him Tuesday. It was after something else I had. There was something else I had attended that morning, and then I went and saw him. I don't remember now. I don't have my calendar with me. I'd have to look at the calendar to see what it was. Yep.
Do you want to make a motion? Do you want to take any action on that? come back next month.
In the minutes. Yes, didn't we, yeah, see, we made a motion and we approved it last time to extend, so. I'm sorry. Do you want to make a motion to do that?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Any other comments?
I guess one question, when we ask the haulers to come in, what's our thought process about what we want to achieve with that?
I mean, it almost ought to be a letter. Is there any chance that some of these haulers might be sort of hauling under the radar, as they say? I mean, would there be some reluctance by some of these guys to really want to jump into the public forum and should we
Yes,
be
I do know
sensitive?
that for a fact, that they don't all go to the landfill.
Yeah,
I've seen that before.
and so, in
Yes.
trying to be, it may be, it's almost like, you don't want to know what we do, It's like, and I don't want to, I want those guys to thrive and prosper doing the right thing by recycling and hauling garbage, but I also want them to obey the law, but I also don't want to put them on the spot,
Well, they don't have to show up.
Well, that's true, but I mean, also by not showing up, they kind of, unless they just en masse not to show up as a statement, I mean, then if the ones that don't show up, then, well, why didn't they show up? Well, okay, maybe they were sick, but I mean, it's not a big thing, but I mean, it just speaks to the idea of being sensitive to these little, talking about hanging on by your fingernails, little businesses that are doing important stuff, that nobody else will do. I mean, and it's noble work in a way, and
Oh, yeah. And I know that their insurance went up on their truck several years ago to a very high amount as well. So I know that put a few of them out of business.
And we also know that the tipping fee went up too, so,
Yes.
all of their fees are going up.
Yep.
But my thought was if you're going to ask somebody to come, kind of have a plan so that they don't feel like when they leave here that their time has been wasted. Kind of have some questions or at least a concept about, why we're asking them to come.
Should show up. Just leave it at that, and then
or if
that's
they had ideas about it.
ideas or interest about recycling in the private sector.
Yeah, say in order to give input for this committee to make it better for them or easier for them or what's best. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, I think you'll get a better response from folks
Yeah.
if you approach it that way. We don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I do think it's a lot to ask a private business owner to come and then them leave and feel like that their time's been wasted. That's a little bit unfair, so.
And I am concerned about just offering recycling through the private haulers, only because some of the people who can't afford that may not eventually have recycling options. We have a lot of people who may not even have. Yeah.
Well,
But if you live on my end, you can drop it at Spectrum.
well, that's true, but
Counter, you don't have to have anything, you can just drop it, which is what I've done for 10 years.
my concern today, since Charlene is giving us that information about Spectre, is how that's gonna impact the whole thing, and haulers like Heaton who have taken on this whole recycling project, and maybe, you know, their investment will be gone, yeah.
They take it to Spectrum.
Yes, my understanding.
And please don't share that information. That was just something that was
Sure.
told to me today.
Sure.
You know, just in confidence, but that's just my personal concerns.
Right. But
general, you
one
know.
thing I would like to say is, the,
Put it out to the public.
There's probably not one person watching. Somebody going to sit at home, YouTube will say one person, that would be me.
Okay, I will, when I call these folks, I will, try to, get a little more information than just, are you interested? Anything else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn then. We are adjourned. Who was first?